Hello and welcome to this instalment of Talkin Trim. I'm Jonathon Skinner and today we're looking at the trim panel kit for the Austin Healey 3000 BJ8 model. Specifically, this video is detailing the parts from a phase 2. There was a split between phase 1 and phase 2 at around chassis number 26,705. We can offer parts for the phase 1. The phase 1 was quite rare. But we can offer parts, and I believe we're the only company in the world that can offer parts for them. The main difference in terms of the trim panels was related to the rear wheel arch panels here, which are often referred to as the rear quarter panels as well. It's all related to the rear axle radius boxes at the bottom of them, which I will detail as we go through this video here. But we can offer parts for both phase 1 and phase 2, so bear that in mind. And it's worth definitely checking out our other videos on our YouTube channel, as I have gone through several differences between the phase 1 and phase 2s with examples of both of them, so be sure to check that out. But this is the phase 2 version, which is by far and away the most commonly seen version. This video also includes a couple of optional extras that you may wish to consider getting at the same time as the trim panel kit. Most namely the centre cushion armrest there, which is sold completely separately, but because it follows on from the centre console area, some people will choose to get it at the same time, so bear that in mind. It's also worth noting as well that I've included repeat items for a few of the parts, mainly the dash top. As standard in the trim panel kit, we supply a retrim kit, which is material to recover your original unit, but we can also, for an optional extra cost, supply you a fully trimmed unit. Same principle again for the door tops. We supply material to recover your original metalwork and rubbers, but we can supply fully trimmed up units slash the hardware elements of them if you fancy doing the job yourself. But again, I'll detail that as I get there. This specific kit has been done in black vinyl ambler material. Ambler vinyl being the original material used by the majority of the cars that left the factory during this era of production for the Healey BJ8. We can also offer an upgrade kit, which would be leather, either in grained or in smooth. And I have actually done a detailed video showing the trim panel kit of a full leather kit, but that was, like I say, an upgrade option, very rarely seen from the factory, but we can offer that for those that are really looking for something special in their restoration there, so do check out that video there. But just as a basic overview, got the 3 materials here, so vinyl there, then you've got the 2 versions of leather, grained and smooth, so grained and smooth. So they're the kind of 3 material options there that we can offer, but this has been done in vinyl ambler, which, like I say, was by far and away the most commonly seen off the production line, and it's been done in black. It's worth noting at this stage here that the dash top elements and the door top elements for BJ8 were standardly always black, regardless of the rest of the trim. Now obviously for this video it doesn't really matter because the whole kit's in black, but say the kit was blue, as standard from the factory, the dash top panel and the door tops were standardly in black for BJ8s. The earlier BJ7s, which actually shared the same part as for the door tops and dash tops, they were the same colour as the main trim, but for BJ8 they standardised it and made them black as standard, regardless of the main trim colour. So this is a trim panel kit. Like I say, it includes all of the parts in this video, apart from a couple of optional extra parts that I've mentioned. It's worth noting that it does work out cheaper to buy the kit as a trim panel kit versus buying all of the parts individually. So it's worth keeping that in mind. You'll save a bit of money. But also, you're guaranteeing the colour, shade, batch matching between the materials. Also, you're guaranteeing that everything is the same quality level in terms of a John Skinner kit versus either a shabby old original parts or poorly made aftermarket parts. So you're guaranteeing the quality throughout. But it's also worth noting, and this is something that really does ring true these days, is that say you're replacing the door panels because they're the shabby parts, shall we say, but the other parts seem okay, so you don't bother replacing them. Once you put brand new John Skinner door panels in the car, it's going to make the other parts that look currently okay look not so okay. So again, it's another reason why we do encourage people to buy as a trim panel kit, so that you're avoiding playing catch up basically the whole time in terms of the look, feel and finish of the car. But we can sell the parts individually, so if you are just doing a part restoration, that's not a problem at all. Worth noting that when we say we sell the parts individually, we sell them as car sets. So for example, the door panels are sold as a pair, rear quarter panels are sold as a pair, etc. So I'm going to work my way through each of the parts individually, giving you some nice detail on them. But like I say, it is worth checking out the rest of our YouTube channel and links at the end of this video to other related videos, because I have done several videos for several of the parts where they perhaps might go into a bit more detail than I will in this one. I do all these videos off the top of my head, and so undoubtedly I'm going to forget something along the way. So do check those out. Let's start at the front of the car with the dash top panel. So like I say, as standard in our trim panel kit, you get material pre-cut to the shape, although oversized, along with some foam padding underneath for retrimming your original plywood dash top unit. For reference, we're talking about this part here that goes from left to right on the car underneath the windscreen. It has a rear view mirror on it, has some fixings on it for the tonneau, it has some demist vents on it. Again, I've done a great video showing and some photos on our website showing one fully trimmed up with original demist vents, etc. For an optional extra addition, as it were, we can supply a fully trimmed plywood panel ready to go into the car, and I'd say by far and away that's what most customers of ours do. They get the upgrades of both the door tops and the dash tops fully trimmed up. Let us do the hard work for you. Obviously, if you want to send us your original dash top panel and it's in decent condition, we're more than happy to retrim that for you as well, but most people just bite the bullet and we supply them a brand new plywood panel fully trimmed up. So the plywood panel, it's obviously plywood, it has the curvature to it, it has the metal finishes on the end of it, metal finishes here as well, and also all of the kind of pilot holes for the various elements like the rear view mirror, demist vents, the fixings for the tonneaus, etc. So it all comes fully trimmed up. It has the foam padding, which you can see through these slots here, which is that foam padding there. Also has a rubber crash roll on the front there, which of course we can supply separately if you wish. So that's the dash top area there. If we work our way back logically, we then also do a dashboard fascia retrim kit. So it's a piece of material oversized for retrimming the instrument panel in the middle of the dash, in between the steering wheel and the glove box element of there. It's just, like I say, oversized piece of material for retrimming that. Again, I have done a video detailing some trimmed up versions of those, so do check that out. Then you have what we refer to as the center console retrim kit. So this is all related to center console. Is this part here, which has the kind of speaker grill panel there. Then it's this part that kind of bends down, that has a gear lever coming out of it. So you have that top section down and then two L's that go on either side of it there. It also includes a piece of piping, pre-sewn piping, which sits between the dash fascia and the sort of speaker grill panel there. So the center console kit consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you also get foam for the L's and the wine bottle shape there. So it's all material pre-cut to size, oversized as well, to allow for easier fitment. Again, we have done some videos showing some of these items fully trimmed up, so do check that out, as it's well worth it. Then moving slightly further back, you've got the center armrest that's sat between the seats. Now, this part isn't part of the trim panel kit. We've just included it in this video because it's an obvious continuation here. However, do check this out in terms of the front seat video, because it's worth considering at the same time as those as well. Purely because, generally speaking, the trim panels left the production line in vinyl ambler. However, the seats sometimes left leather faced, or leather as they refer to them, which is when the main parts of the seats are leather but the backs and surrounds are vinyl. And if they left with that spec on the seats, then this part here would also be leather faced, which basically means this top section here is leather, but the sides are still vinyl. But regardless of that, it's worth considering getting at the same time, depending on the spec you're going for. So center armrest did differ between the phase 1 and phase 2s. Now, it is worth noting that this part also differed between phase 1 and phase 2s. And again, I have done a great video showing phase 1 and phase 2 kits and trimmed up items, so worth checking that out. Basically, the phase 1 center console was longer because the center armrest was shorter and hinged, whereas the phase 2 was a shorter console because the armrest was longer and not hinged. We have standardized this kit. We've made it big enough for both of them, basically. So that doesn't change, but this part radically changes. There is a big difference between phase 1 and phase 2, so just bear that in mind. Just to show you what I'm talking about here. That's the centre armrest in between the two seats there, and that's how it sort of conjoins onto the centre console area there. That's the phase 2 version, which is what this video is here. But it's a pre-sewn cover, has piping, level cloth piping. Again, see our YouTube and blog posts on level cloth piping versus vinyl piping. We always use level cloth where colours allow, which is the majority of our colours, but it's a pre-sewn cover. Like I said, this middle section here will be leather for the leather face kits, but this is a full vinyl kit here. And you also get the foam padding here, which is slightly oversized, but that's done intentionally because it allows you to compress it down, which gives you the right amount of tension for the actual trimming process. Again, the piping is extended past the sewing points there, which again is done by design, because that allows you to trim the part round. But again, I've done a video detailing that fully trimmed off as well, so be sure to check that one out. So yeah, you might want to consider getting that at the same time, but it is not part of the trim panel kit, so bear that in mind. So that's effectively the dash top back all the way from here all the way back to the armrest there in between the two seats. So let's now work our way back to the front and go over the A-post footwell kick panels. So you get a pair of them. They're not identical. They're not mirror images of one another. But these are the panels that sit directly in front of the door panels in the footwell area there. So underneath there, yeah, sort of to the corner there. Don't think we're going to get any other better views, I'm afraid. No. So yeah, sort of down there, down here. They are cut on our in-house CNC out of hardboard, 2.55mm hardboard. Deliberately done to that thickness, not 3mm. They are marine and automotive spec oil tempered hardboard, so a lot better than originally came out of the factory and a lot better than the materials that were even used 20 to 30 years ago. We specially import this material and we use it for the majority of our interior trim panels. The comparison to ply is null and void. It's chalk and cheese in that regard. Again, I am going to be doing a video and a blog post on that. A lot of other companies out there do use marine ply for their panels. Yeah, chalk and cheese. So yeah, like I say, 2.55, very specific thickness. You cannot get that down your local DIY store. And the oil tempered marine and automotive spec is also very crucial, so just bear that in mind. So they are cut. They have the pilot holes on them for their elements, I believe, to the way the dash is secured in effectively. And they're trimmed all the way around, apart from on this sort of back edge here. So they sit down in the footwell like that. But this back edge we don't trim intentionally because that wraps around the sort of panel and tucks in where the Furflex sort of draft excluder goes. So that is done by design. It's worth noting at this stage that our kit's obviously templated on original templates, but we've also supplied some of the leading, and continue to supply some of the leading restorers in the world for Austin Healey's. People like Rawls Motorsport, JME Healey, Murray Scott Nelson. We've also supplied several of the kits for the Austin Healey concourse judges over in America. So not necessarily for concourse events, although we have done that ourselves as well. I'm talking literally we have supplied kits for the judges of the concourse events. So I think that's a real stamp of approval that we know what we're talking about with, and not just BJ8 kits, but all of our Healey kits, that several of the judges for the concourse events in America for Healey's use our kits, so bear that in mind there. And it's because of connections like that and working with companies such as Rawls and Jeremy Healey and Murray Scott Nelson that we've learnt to make these kits in line with originality but improved on originality. And it's things like this where this subtle thing where just leaving a bit of extra material to wrap round really does make the difference. So that's why we do it on this part and several other parts. So that's the left-hand kick panel, A-post panel. The right-hand A-post kick panel is very similar, but it has a cutout in the middle of it there. but the concept of it is exactly the same. So hardboard again, pilot holes again. And the reason for that cutout there, I believe, is a fairly ridiculous reason. I believe for the right-hand drive cars, Healey thought that leaving a bit of a gap there would give the right foot a bit more wiggle room when rested. So they did it. Obviously, they didn't bother changing between left-hand drive and right-hand drive. They just fitted all of them with the right-hand drive spec on there. So that's why it has a hole in it. And we supply an extra piece of material there, which is used to cover up the actual bodywork of the car so that everything looks black. So the A-post footwell panels, and like I said, they are sold as a pair or a 3-piece kit, including the loose piece there. Now moving on to the door panels. And this door panel has the door top semi in line with it just to demonstrate, but the door panels are sold as a pair of them here. And we'll just talk about the door panels, not the door tops for the time being. So again, they are CNC cut on our in-house CNC machine, again out of the same grade, marine automotive grade oil tempered hardboard, 2.55 mil. And they're an odd door panel. They're rather unique. They're like a 2-piece door panel. So you had this L section here, then you had this D section here. The L section had a metal bracket riveted on the front of it, which is used during the fitment process to sort of fit effectively to the bodywork of the car. Again, you obviously get the pilot holes for the fixings on the door panels, and you also get pilot holes for the window winder and door release, and then you also get pilot holes for the door pull at the top there. Always worth lining these up to your car specifically. We make them to a big enough size that you should be able to work out where yours go, and then just cut a small enough hole for the rod to effectively fit through. You don't need to cut out the whole hole, as it were. We've seen some absolute horror stories from inexperienced trimmers that have gone the whole hog. If it was the whole hole that needed trimming out, then we would do it ourselves at this end. But the reason we leave it floated over like that is by design. So again, with these sorts of things, or any of these elements of things, yourself as an enthusiastic hobbyist or a professional trimmer alike, if they're unsure, get them to talk to us first. We supply thousands of these kits. Everything is standardized, CNC CAD cut these days. We know we make it right each time. So if there's an issue in the fitment process, then get them to talk to us, because more than likely it's either an issue with the car or a lack of understanding of how it goes together. So we're more than happy to help on that. But yeah, so you get the pilot elements of those there. Now it's worth noting the fixing holes, or rather the fixing clips themselves. We do supply those as a kit. They effectively consist of 3 main parts. You get this trim clip here, which does the majority of the fixing of them, and then you have these screws and washers there as well. That is sold separately to the trim panel kits. It's worth noting with these trim clips here, they are slightly bigger than the original ones. The original ones were black and slightly smaller. These are green and slightly bigger, again by design. So they work in exactly the same way. You put them in the fixing holes there. You've got obviously 360 rotation from hole to hole, which can make a big difference as you go round actually trying to fit them into the car. So do bear that in mind, because people assume everything's uniformly done. They're all facing the same direction. That's often not the case. You might have one that's like that, one that's like that, the next one like that, and it makes a big difference in terms of the fitment to the car. So bear that in mind. But like I said, they are slightly bigger by design. It makes the process of fitting them a bit harder. You literally have to kind of put them into place, line them up with the holes on your car, and then almost punch over the panel to get them to pop into place. But it means that when they are fitted, they will not come off. You often find with these classic cars that as you're driving along and rattling along, as it were, sometimes they tend to pop off, especially in the thicker areas around here. So again, this is why we've tried to make improvements, subtle improvements that make a big difference on the door panels. This is the door panel there. So yeah, 2-piece panels effectively, but then they are riveted together at the last minute, well not last minute, the last stage rather. To look at the face here, so like I say, you've got the L shape here, trimmed all the way around, and then the D shape here has piping. So it's effectively 3 pieces sewn together with piping there. Piping was always the same colour as the main trim. Of course, if you want us to, we can contrast that piping for you, so let us know. And in fact, again, I've done videos detailing that, I believe. But yeah, they're the door panels there. Door tops, as standard, much like the dash top, we supply 2 pieces of vinyl to retrim your original door tops. The door tops themselves were a metal panel. They were handed, and then they had this sort of shaped rubber, which you actually have to sculpt a little bit to get them to correctly fit the panels, and then they effectively look like that when they're all said and done. Now they sort of go over the top like that, as it were. So that's how they kind of sit when they're all in the car. If we look, it's this element here across the top. They were standardised between the BJ7 and BJ8s. The only difference being the BJ7s maintain the same main colour trim as the main kit. So if it was blue, they would be blue. Whereas the BJ8s were always black, regardless of the main trim colour. But of course, we can do whatever colour you want. So bear that in mind. So yeah, material is included in the trim panel kit. If you wanted either replacement cappings, rubber, or trimmed up units, they are all optional extras. Most people go for the fully trimmed up units, which are sold as a pair. That's the other one over there. But like I say, we can supply you the metalwork and the rubber if you're wanting to do a bit of work yourself. And same principle again with the dash tops. If you want to send us your original metalworks, and of course we can trim those, assuming they're in good enough condition. So let us know about that. But as mentioned before, most people just go for the fully trimmed up units there, which are sold separately to the main trim panel kit. So that's the door tops there. Then finally, we got the rear quarter panels, which are the piece de resistance, should we say, for the BJ8s, as they had this rather unique HFRF weld pattern, square pattern embossed into it for the vinyl versions of the kits there. And I believe we're one of the only companies in the world, if not the only company in the world, that actually has a tooling for this. Like I say, majority of the cars left with vinyl ambler trim for the main trim panels, and that meant that they always had this square pattern on it. For the rare cars that might have left the factory with a full leather kit, more than likely it'll be a special order, sometimes seen for foreign-based diplomats or something like that, then these would be plain. However, we can supply ones with the HFRF weld pattern on them, so do let us know. There is a surcharge for the weld pattern on leather only. On vinyl ambler ones, we do it as standard because obviously that's how they left the factory originally. Now it's worth noting that the quarter panel itself changed between phase 1 and phase 2. This is a phase 2, signified by this cutaway here. The phase 1s were exactly the same as the BJ7s. They didn't have this cutaway here, and it carried on down. And again, we can offer the phase 1 panels, including the weld pattern there. I believe we're the only company in the world that can do that. So there's a couple other companies out there that will offer phase 1s, which will have that weld pattern on it, but then they'll have the corner in, but that will be plain there. That is incorrect. The pattern carried on for the phase 1s as well. And again, it just shows you the levels that we've gone to in our restoration efforts to make sure that we've got all of the correct tooling for these sorts of things here. So this is phase 2. Phase 1 did have this section in and also the pattern down. And again, I have done videos showcasing phase 1 versus phase 2. They look absolutely beautiful, those with the weld pattern on. And I'll tell you what, the ones in full level with the weld pattern on look absolutely astonishing. They're really, really nice. It's something that we cracked a few years ago. Previous to that, we couldn't weld leather with that pattern, but we cracked it maybe 2 years ago, and they look superb. So yeah, they're the rear quarter panels. This cutaway here for the phase 2 is all related to the rear axle radius arm. So it's this little box here, which was carpeted and had a vinyl tab on it, which is obviously part of the carpet sets. But that's what the cutaway was for on the phase 2 versions of the car. So if you're unsure whether your car is phase 1 or phase 2 in terms of the actual interior trim, which often is a question mark, raised around people that have a chassis number roughly around the changeover period because they weren't necessarily pedantic about it on the production line. They kind of had a chassis number where it should have changed over, but then before and after there were cases where they mixed and matched trim. So we'll always ask you for photos showing the rear floor area and whether you basically got this rear axle radius arm box located there or not. So if you have, then it's a phase 2. If you haven't, it's a phase 1 in terms of the quarter panel there. The actual panel itself, if we look at the panel. It's a hardboard panel, and then it has a metalwork panel riveted onto the front of it there. You do have a load of pilot holes there, but they're often hidden up by this back part here, and it's trimmed all the way around. Very nicely done. Again, the back of our panel's beautifully done like that. Again, other companies out there do not take the effort to trim the back of their panels quite like we do. But there is a reason that we do it like that, and that's because when everything's said and done and it's in the car, there is a gap between the bodywork and the panel itself, and you can actually see down the back of it. So we trim it to make it all look all neat and tidy and consistent. So bear that in mind there. But yeah, trimmed all the way around. Pilot holes underneath there for the various elements related to, I believe it's the rear seat when it folds down, etc., and bolts into the side there, etc. there. So yeah, that's the rear quarter panels, which obviously sold as a pair there. So I think that's covered it. Like I say, a bit of a recap. Phase 2 BJ8, but the principle is very similar for the Phase 1s with some subtle differences. We got some optional extra items, things like fully trimmed dash top and fully trimmed door tops, all the hardware for them we can sell separately. Rear quarter panels change between Phase 1 and Phase 2. This centre cushion armrest is completely separate to the trim panel kit and should really be considered at the same time as this, but also at the same time as your seats, depending on the spec you're going for in the car. Fixings are sold separately to the trim panel kit. Black was standard for the dash tops and the door tops. Vinyl was by far and away the most commonly seen material used from the factory. We can offer a leather upgrade kit, which includes an option for HFRF welded panels on the leather ones as well. But obviously for vinyl ambler, we supply them welded up as standard. There, cheaper to buy as a trim panel kit versus all of the parts individually, but of course we can supply them individually if you want, but in car set form, so in pairs normally. I think that's it. Thank you for watching, and please remember to like and subscribe. Of course, share with other classic car enthusiasts out there. Be sure to check out our videos at the end of this one, as well as all of the videos on my YouTube channel, as they're very informative for anyone looking to restore their BJ8. Thanks for tuning in, and be sure to check in for the next video. Thank you.